Shalom, everybody. Today we'll learn about the fourth meal of Shabbat, which sounds like an oxymoron since we insisted that there's only three. And the meal is called Melaveh Malka, literally to escort the queen. And so there's a few very interesting sources just for the idea of what it means to escort in terms of Agadah and Halacha. So there's a midrash which I could not find the actual source except for Yalkut Shimoni, that when it says about Abraham after he comes back from the Akedah, it says Vayita Eshel Be'er Sheva, that he planted a tree, somewhat like a evergreen, so it's either like a pine or cedar or any other kind of tree that's like that. The rabbis say that that's not the literal meaning because why do we need to care which kind of tree he planted? And so the rabbis say that Eshel is an acronym for Achila, Shtiya, and Levaya, so that when he would host somebody, he would feed them and have them drink, and also walk a certain amount of distance with them after they took leave. So in the Gemara it says that Reish Lakish said to the disseminator, so please say something for the people who want to comfort the mourners. And he said, "Achenu gomlei chasadim, bnei gomlei chasadim." So our brethren um, who are doing acts of loving kindness, sons of such people who did acts of loving kindness, who hold on to the covenant of Abraham, that he did the same thing, and so that's why they talk about Eshel. Kliakar takes it even to a different generation, which is that when Yosef sent the covered carriages to bring Yaakov and his family down to Egypt, it says in the Kliyakar, and unfortunately I could not find an English translation for the Kliyakar or for Rashi on Ketubot. It says, and Yosef lamad dina levaya min Yaakov, that Yosef learned that you're supposed to escort people from Yaakov, because it says, L'cha ve'eshlachacha alehem. So when Yaakov sends him out to see his brothers, where the whole story started, it says, L'cha ve'eshlachacha. So it should have been the opposite. It should have been eshlachacha alehem and then go. Lecha means go. So v'chi achar she'elech yishalcho. And what it would be missing if he didn't just say lecha alehem, he just said to go to them. So it says here that he learned from Yaakov to that he escorted him on his way to see his brothers, and that's what lecha ve'eshlachacha alehem. I will send you off with my journey, with my company to your journey. And last but not least, and get Degel Machane Ephraim, another one that doesn't have translation. And I think that this one is the most significant for our study today, is that in the Zohar Kadosh it says that Adam was guilty through Etz Hadat, Avraham tiken be'etz hachaim, that Abraham was able to fix the sin of Etz Hadat with Etz hachaim. And then it says that Avraham Avinu alav Hashalom was a tikkun of Adam Arishon, and Adam chata be'etz hadat, and Avraham did the opposite and made it into good. And part of the good that he made it was this idea of the levaya, where he ends with Gmilut Chasadim, which was to escort those who he hosted, as we saw in Rashi on Ketubot Daf Chet. So now that we had that introduction, I think that we'll understand better why we're escorting the queen and calling it Melaveh Malka. So the sages state that it is a mitzvah to set the table on Saturday night for the Melaveh Malka, literally accompanying the queen, meal with which we honor Shabbat at its departure. When one must say goodbye to a dear and beloved guest whom he does not want to leave, he escorts him a distance in order to spend just a bit more time with him. So too, we must escort Shabbat at its departure. Despite the fact that it is over, we continue to savor and delight in its holiness. On Shabbat, we are blessed with the additional holiness in all areas of life, material and spiritual, of course, as we have seen in all of our classes about expressing through prayer and meals. Our goal is to extend the light of Shabbat to the weekdays. The Arizal, again another quote from Kabbalah, explains that by saying Vihi Noam in Mariv on Saturday night, we extend the additional spiritual holiness of Shabbat to the weekdays. And I don't know why Rav Melamed didn't bring it, but our rabbis tell us in the Gemara that Vihi Noam, those two verses at the end of Psalm 90, is exactly what Moshe told the people after completing the Mishkan. So Shabbat, we know everything from Shabbat is learned from the Mishkan, and it's Me'en Olam Haba, and it has the Kedusha of the Mishkan, etc., etc. So when we say V'hinu Am Adonai Eloheinu Aleinu Ma'aseh Yadenu Koronel, which was the blessing of Moshe, we are basically extending the holiness to the weekdays and ask that God's grace rest upon all our endeavors. And by the way, there's a minhag not to say it, Ashkenazi minhag, not to say it in a week that will have Yantav, because it's not a full week of work. Through Melaveh Malka, we extend the light of holiness to our eating all week. We have a tradition that there is a bone in the human body called the luz. This bone did not benefit when Adam ate from the tree of knowledge. Therefore, even though death was decreed upon mankind as a result of the sin which we just talked about in the Degel Machane Ephraim, this bone itself does not rot. At the time of the resurrection of the dead, each individual's revival will begin from the luz. This bone, we are told, is nourished only by Melaveh Malka, and that's in Kaf HaChaim and based on Midrash Rabbah of Vayikra. Those who are especially devout prepare special food for Melaveh Malka. The Talmud, again in Shabbat, recounts that Rabbi Abau's household was accustomed to slaughter a calf on Saturday night to serve at the Melaveh Malka. Rabbi Abau would eat one of its kidneys. When Rabbi Abau's son grew up, he asked why it was necessary to slaughter an entire calf each Saturday night. He suggested that it made more sense to leave over a kidney from the calf that had been slaughtered on Friday. So we can assume from this that they were very, very rich. Another opinion is that that's the calf that they created with Sefer Yetzirah on Friday, and eat that on Saturday night. The family listened to this advice and saved some of Friday's meat for Saturday night. A lion came along and devoured the whole veal that was meant for Saturday night. Thus, they gained nothing. The Gemara tells us this story to teach us that it is proper to make extra food and special meals for Melaveh Malka rather than just eat Shabbat leftovers. And by the way, there's a different Gemara that says sort of the opposite, which is that Chamin b'motzei Shabbat milugma, that if you eat some of the chulent or other hot meals that you prepared for Shabbat on Motzei Shabbos, it's a good medicine for all kinds of illnesses. So I'm not sure how we reconcile those two Gemaras. One is a story, one is a good advice. I'm not sure what the proper answer is for that. So since the Melaveh Malka is meant to extend the Shabbat experience to the weekdays, it is comparable to the other Shabbat meals. Thus, it is appropriate to put a tablecloth on the table and set it nicely. It is also appropriate to remain in Shabbat clothes until Melaveh Malka is finished. Just as Shabbat meals are equally relevant to men and women, so is Melaveh Malka. And ideally, one should have bread for Melaveh Malka. Again, repeating what we said yesterday about how bread is important to signify that it is a sit-down meal, as one does at all Shabbat meals, and one should make a special dish in honor of the meal. So basically, these are a few more. He calls them laws, but there's really it's not part of the obligation that if you don't, you didn't keep Shabbat, but rather these are additional things to show how much we love Shabbat. And actually, one of Rav Melamed's Ramim, one of the teachers in the Yeshiva, left the Yeshiva and came to Beersheba. And so he did continue to do this, and we had a gathering of friends every Motzei Shabbat, and there were divrei Torah and special foods that the host always made, and it was just, I think that's really showing us how we can extend that holiness. And now that we finished this chapter, we're going to start tomorrow with the eighth chapter, which is about Havdalah and Saturday night. So it's going according to the actual gradual and chronicle order. We'll stop here.